Money is not a scarce resource. Money flows. And people who have a lot of money understand that. That's what you're talking about, other investments and money's put here and put there. And we illustrate that in the book. Take the word currency. It's derived from Old English around current, river, flow. It flows. Now as we have an international economy, even though some people are trying to deny that's true.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why? Hi everyone, I'm Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today I'm here with Bill Cates. Bill's a Hall of Fame speaker, entrepreneur, referral expert to financial advisors, and author of The Hidden Heist. Stop robbing yourself of lasting wealth. Bill, like I said, it always sounds better in my mind to let you tell your story. But first, I want to say thank you for being here. Thanks for taking the time out. I know you're busy on the book promotion circuit. So thanks for being here and taking some time to talk to my audience. I really appreciate it.
You bet, Jason. And let's just kind of set one thing straight very quickly. A lot of times when people hear my name or they see it written, they do a double take and they think that, Jason got Bill Gates on his podcast.
Yeah.
It happens. I missed it by one letter and a couple of bucks. But, I like to say he may have a lot of money. Maybe I can help you make more money. So
there you go.
I know that, where to start? I was a drummer in a rock and roll band years ago. And then I did a talent assessment and realized, if I did this for the rest of my life, I'd probably be playing in Holiday Inns at best. So I was realistic around I still play, but, for myself when my wife isn't home. But slowly I got into business and I ended up with a couple of book publishing companies. And I started those, built those, sold them. Now one I sold for, pretty penny, good amount of money. The other one I sold to get out of a not so good partnership and let him take care of the debt. So when someone says they sold their business, yeah, maybe they made some money. Maybe they just got out of a bad scene. I did a little bit of both. And then I got into this world of consulting and helping folks grow their business through referrals, through better messaging. I've written a bunch of books on that. And I've been in the financial services industry for over 30 years. And what happened for me is, as I became more and more successful, as I started doing all the right financial stuff for myself, as I started working with all these advisors, helping them bring billions of dollars in, I just became so aware of how so many people they don't have financial education. They have a bad money mindset. Their relationship with money isn't always healthy. The whole mindset and thinking and all of that, I just became in tune with that. And so kind of my legacy work, if you want to talk about my why now is this. I believe that everyone on this planet deserves to make educated financial decisions that are in their best interest. And the problem is most people don't get educated. When we're young, we pick up on sometimes some bad lessons or incomplete lessons from parents, guardians, others. The media doesn't help. Social media is not helping these days around money mindset. And so I wrote my newest book, The Hidden Heist, to help people become more aware. What is your money story? What is your mindset? Where is it serving you and where is it not serving you? And I've done over 100 money interviews with people to find out what their story is. And the truth is most of us have broken money stories. And because of that, we don't do as well financially as we can. Now, with that said, I've met people who are worth 30 million, 40 million, more than that. And they also have broken money stories to a certain degree. So it's not just about the accumulation of money. It's also how you use money, your relationship to money, all of that. So that's my current why. That's my mission. That's what I'm working on pretty strongly. And I know you have a lot of folks that, entrepreneurs and people in sales and business, and let's look at their money story. Let's look at all our money stories and see how we can be better.
Yeah, I think that's such a important topic. It comes up here and there. It has come up here and there on the podcast in the past, but it's a tricky one because
Mm-hmm.
it does seem like probably the majority of people have a negative or at least unproductive relationship with money and the topics and the education around how to be. I don't even know if saying smart with your money is the right way to put it, but just like understanding what it means in your own mind and how to not look at it from such a negative perspective. Where do we start? I mean, we can't go back to I mean, I guess we can go back to my childhood, but you can't, get into the child mind of every person. So how do you start those conversations with people?
Yes. Well, I think that is a place to start a little bit, just to understand. So when I do my money stories, that's the place that I start. My money interviews is, what is your first memory of money? Now, I remember mine vividly. I was probably about 8 or 9 years old. I was sitting on my bed. I had money in these long, thin, boxes I use for ties, for neckties. Nobody wears neckties anymore, hardly. But anyway, it was flat because it was good for like flat dollar bills, right? And Dimmy Wilkes, one of the neighbors, was visiting, and she poked her head in the door and she said, "Hey, what are you doing there, Billy Case?" I go, "Counting my money." "Oh, how much do you have?" $18.79. "Oh, that's good. What are you going to do with it?" "I don't know, but I count it every day, and I'm going to get more of it." Right. So it's like, that was kind of a happy story. But beyond that, what messages did you get from your parents or whoever brought you up? So for in a lot of cases, it's they don't talk at all about money. Some cases, there's never enough message. It's just never enough, never enough. We can't afford it, can't afford it. Sometimes there's resentment towards people who have a lot of money. And so if we grow up in an environment where there's resentment towards people who have a lot of money, and that starts to become a little bit of who we are and how we think and feel, well, we can't become what we resent, so we have to fight against that one. Um, and in some homes, people are taught pretty healthy things about money and how to save and how to invest, and money doesn't buy happiness, although it does help. It helps you arrive at your problems with style, I suppose. So starting with that early on messages, and then how the media and social media and everything is fed into that. And then take a look at what are your beliefs, what are your assumptions, and we can get into some of those. I like to say limiting beliefs, mistaken assumptions, and unhelpful emotions, and they all tied together. It's complicated, and which all lead to unproductive behavior and decisions. I mean, we can start with some of the mistaken assumptions if you want, and beliefs.
Are you planning a remodel or construction project? Overwhelmed by the process? Over budget? Extended timelines? Strained relationships? We are all too familiar. At Lark Construction Services, we help homeowners and business owners take control of their construction journey, from reviewing bids and contracts to catching red flags before they become costly mistakes. Our Clarity Audit is a one-on-one expert review of your plans, estimates, or current progress, giving you the peace of mind and a defined action plan to move forward with confidence. Don't let confusion lead to costly errors. Visit larkconstruction.com and schedule your free call today. Lark Construction Services, saving you time, money, and stress.
Yeah, and I think maybe this fits in that category, but the piece you mentioned on we can't become what we resent,
Yeah.
that definitely struck me in that's a really I've never heard it put that way, but it really makes a lot of sense in the sense that, like, so many people do vilify money, people with wealth. There's all these
Yes.
reasons why they're bad, and you can look, social media certainly feeds into a lot of things, but that's one of them. It's like, oh, they're not paying their share in taxes. They're not doing this. They could solve all the world's problems if they just took half of their money and gave it away. And like, there's all this stuff without actually understanding, like not even understanding what wealth and net worth looks like. Like you talk about the richest people in the world, and Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, they don't actually have a vault with a pile of money in it. Like that's not how it looks. And so it's
those guys might actually, but I understand what you're saying.
Right. The high net worth individual, oftentimes that is involved. It's tied up in assets. So they're not liquidly wealthy, I guess. That's probably not exactly the right way to put it, but it's just, I think people say things like that without even understanding, it's like, oh, whatever, someone's worth $500 billion. Well, if they paid half of that in taxes, then we'd all be set. And it's like, well, they're not making 500 billion a year. They don't have that much sitting around to, even if they wanted to do that, like it's not a feasible option. So I do think there's a lot of lack of understanding when some of this negative energy goes towards people with wealth.
Yeah. Boy, there's a lot to unpack in what you said, but a couple of thoughts. A really simplistic one is the difference between net worth and cash and income. Yeah. Right? Yeah. There's net worth, there's cash, money on hand, there's income. Look, do I believe that a lot of folks that have a lot of money could do a little bit better in terms of contribution of cash to taxes? Yeah, I think so. I mean, everybody who on this planet doesn't want to pay tax. No one wants to pay tax, right? They can avoid it or pay less tax, right? I get that. But if everybody did that, then look, we can argue about what the federal and the state government provides and doesn't provide, and are there handouts and all of that, that stuff. We can get into that. But the truth is, certain things do need to be paid for, right? We do need roads, and it's some. All right, so we know that taxes should be paid, and are there some people that could probably pay a little more of their fair share and make a big difference? Yes, there's no question about that. Does the media vilify? Yeah. I mean, look at the way, here's one little example. And by the way, I'm not advocating for greed. I'm not advocating for grift. I'm not advocating for cheating and getting over on people and all that. I'm not any of that. The kind of wealth and abundance that I'm talking about is very different than that. Reporters, when they often talk about people with money, they're reporting on a story. You can just often feel there's a negative bent there towards these people that have a lot of money. Now, maybe it's deserved because that person just committed a crime. Okay, I get it. But it's not just because they have a lot of money. I don't begrudge anyone that has a lot of money who's very wealthy, especially if he or she earned it in a way that, with the principle that money follows value, and they bring value and people perceive that value, and then money is accumulated for that. Now, we actually address this in the book, The Hidden Heist, a little bit, because we address some of the stereotypes. And now, when you have stereotypes, there's often some truth. There's a seed of truth. There's a reason for that stereotype, right? And my co-author, Jeff C. West, actually says it brilliantly in the book, and this has become one of my little mantras. So when he's talking about wealthy people, one of the characters in the book says, well, wealthy people, they're greedy, they lie and cheat to get to where they are. They don't give any money to anybody, yada, 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 right? And so his little phrase, Jeff's was, in the character in Alden Beckett, says, well, some are, most aren't. And so, yeah, some are greedy. Some don't pay their fair share. Some yada, yada. Some cheat to get there. Some are dishonest. But actually, most wealthy people that I've met, and I've met a lot of them over the years I've been doing this, they're very giving. They understand that money follows value. They want their clients or customers to be happy. Talk about philanthropy. There's a lot of people with a lot of money that give a lot, and sometimes give anonymously, which always blows my mind when someone gives like millions of dollars to research or a spiritual institution or a university or whatever they give money to, right? And they do it anonymously. Talk about a healthy money relationship there, right? Where you're not tied to it and your ego's not tied to it. So the truth is some are, most aren't. But if you grew up in an environment, I interviewed one guy, Michael, whose father resented people with money. And so he had to deal with that. Now he did get over that. He did get past that, but he realized that he was fighting against that because the cognitive dissonance comes into play, and you can't become what you resent, what you don't like, what you fear, whatever, right? So yeah, it's complicated. And you also touched on something too about, and we talk about this in the Hidden Heist as well, is money is not a scarce resource. Money flows. And people who have a lot of money understand that. That's why you're talking about other investments and money's put here and put there. And we illustrate that in the book. Take the word currency. Is derived from Old English around current, river, flow. It flows now, we have an international economy. Even though some people are trying to deny that's true, we have an international economy, and money flows internationally. And so, just because it may be scarce in your pocket at the moment, and that's real, and we have to deal with that. Mm-hmm. When you understand how money works and how money flows, and you find ways to get yourself into that flow, then your ability to attract money and bring money into your life does get easier. So there's a lot you said to unpack. With that, we address that in the Hidden Heist to some degree, because if you have this mistaken assumption or just a lack of knowledge around how money works, then you'll make some bad decisions.
Right. Yeah, and I think, I love that piece about, some are bad people, but most aren't.
Some are, most aren't, of any stereotype, right?
Right. And you could, but my thought behind that when you were saying that is like, well, you could say that about any group, people without money or people with money. So it's like, I think maybe the piece here, or the point I'm trying to make, is for people to disassociate those two things, right? If you're a good person, then you should then be a good person with money, right? Like it doesn't change, it doesn't make you not a good person. So it's
yeah, and my favorite word these days talking about money is it's complicated. Yeah. Because you're right. And some of the most generous people in the world are people who don't have very much. So the whole idea of generosity and scarcity, fear, anxiety, shame, even people have money, shame around money. It knows no economic rung on a ladder. I've seen people with shame and fear and anxiety. People have very little to people have $40, $50 million in net worth and beyond. So one reason I wrote the book is here's one of my truisms, one of my beliefs, is that if you've got a challenge in your life, whatever it may be, interpersonal, business, doesn't matter. What we normally do is we look for a strategy or a tactic to solve that challenge, and it makes sense to do that. And there's quite often a belief that's operating that's not allowing us to see a strategy or a tactic that actually could solve the problem. So every now and then, and I do it around money in the Hidden Heist, but every now and then, no matter what it is, every now and then you got to take a step back and say, what am I believing about myself, about the other person, about my product, my service, the economy, whatever? What am I believing about the context that's keeping me from seeing other options? So that our beliefs constrain our awareness. And it's our awareness that determines what's possible for us. So I wrote The Hidden Heist to help expand people's awareness. And so what happens is when you become aware of your relationship with money, how you perceive money, how you feel about money, and where it may be a little bit of where it came from, that can be helpful. But then also how it's, dictating your life now. then your awareness changes and your ability to make different choices change. So can I give you an example of my own life? Yeah. So I used to suffer from a lot of anxiety around money. It hasn't fully gone away. It may never go away because the brain doesn't really rewire, it overwires. It doesn't rewire. So here's how it showed up. When early on, it came from my parents because they grew up in the Depression, scarcity mindset. My dad saved well, but he didn't invest. He was afraid to invest, afraid of the risk. My mother, you never quit one job until you got the next job lined up, right? Safe, 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 safe. How I became an entrepreneur, I have no idea. But I adopted that anxiety. A lot of people can identify with the idea of anxiety around money because a lot of humans have it. So how does it show up? Well, for me, initially, and this is true for a lot of folks, is kind of money or financial denial. So think of it this way. The number one killer of houseplants is underwatering. The number two killer of houseplants is overwatering. So what was happening for me early on is my anxiety, because I was anxious around money. I didn't want to look at money. I didn't want to do numbers for my business. I didn't want to learn how to look at a P&L sheet. I was just not good with the numbers because I was afraid of them. I was anxious around them. So I was underwatering my money tree. I was not paying attention. It was masked by what I thought was an abundance mindset. Oh, it'll take care of itself. I have an abundant mindset. Yeah, the truth is, I was just fooling myself. So then I learned how money works, and I learned what I want to do with money and how to make it work for me. Then I flipped, and then I started overwatering my money tree. My anxiety started really showing up anxious around the stock market. Did it go up? Did it go down? Did my house value go up? Did it go down? Right? This investment, that investment. And I was doing well financially, but the anxiety wasn't going away, right? It just turned into another way to treat the money tree. And so eventually I had to get fed up, which I hope happens to everybody from time to time. It's like, I can't go on this way. This is just not a way to live. And so I started really learning how money worked. And when you know how money works, then slowly what happens for me is when that anxiety song plays, I just turn the volume down a little bit, and it plays a little less. So I hope that's helpful for folks because most people can identify with that. It starts with awareness, and then it continues with education. And then it's a kind of an infinity loop where you learn a little more, your awareness changes, you learn a little more, your behavior changes, and slowly but surely you rewrite your money story into a much healthier story. And you're feeling less anxious, you're accumulating more wealth, and you're doing really good things with that wealth for yourself and perhaps future generations and other people in your community.
Yeah. I love what you just said there. I think that you basically have, it's not enough, like realistically, it's not enough to just have mindset. You also have to have a strategy or a plan, or so you need
Yes.
mindset plus education, not one or the other, right? So you can know all there is to know and still have all the anxiety, or you can be super gung ho and I'm just going to do this and make it work and be doing it all wrong. So I think that the way that you kind of summed up how the process works is phenomenal and absolutely starts with awareness. Like what do I think now? Like what today, what is my belief around
what's
money?
ruling me now? What's my story now? What, being honest with yourself, asking other people in your life, looking back, asking siblings if you have them, et cetera, just, figuring that out a little bit. And then, if you really want to know what someone values, this is going to be a little harsh truth. If you want to know what someone really values, it's the old adage, follow the money. Where are they spending and or investing their dollars? Are they saving what's left after what they spend, or are they spending what's left after what they saved? So, it's awareness, it's education, and then there's a third element there, which is action, right? Because we all know people, and we all, it happens to all of us, right? We're aware of something, okay, we learn about something, but doesn't necessarily mean we're taking action on that something too. So that's part of the puzzle. Here's the problem that happened to me, and it happens to a lot of people. You see it all the time. And I just want to ask the people listening, do you get this? Could this be true for yourself? And that is, I was equating my self-worth with my net worth. And so, bigger house, fancier car. My father used to, say, anyone who drove a Cadillac, he says, conspicuous consumption, right? They're just showing off, conspicuous consumption. So and of course now I drive a Cadillac, so I already did. But so, I was measuring my net worth by the square footage of my house. And so what we have to understand is that our self-worth can influence and dictate our net worth, but it never works the other way around. Now, it's not always as simple as that straight line, but that's just one thing to become aware of. And I got caught up in that. And I get it. I was, look, do I like a nice house? Do I like high ceilings? Do I like a lot of windows? Yeah. Do I feel more comfortable? Yeah. But is there a little piece of me there saying, look, world, look what I did? Yeah. And that's the part that maybe isn't quite so healthy, especially if it gets out of control. And that's where people get in trouble, when it gets out of control.
Yeah. Gosh, this could be an entirely different podcast topic, but the idea of doing things like purchases, actions, whatever, mainly to look wealthy, right? Like to give the illusion of, conspicuous consumption, if we go back to what your dad said, but like the idea, and I mean, it's some of this, I don't know if this stuff is new, or I just wasn't aware of it, but now I live in Los Angeles. But it's like the idea of people buying or renting like super expensive cars so that they can take pictures with them, or renting a yacht so that they can have pictures to show that they were on this thing, but they don't actually have money. And I was like, it doesn't make sense to me. I certainly don't have all the money mindset strategy. I don't have all of that dialed in perfectly, but that sort of thing doesn't make sense. I've probably done things.
It's not authentic. It's not real. And this is happening a lot, by the way, to the millennial generation. Some folks that are younger they call me Uncle Bill. It's like, I give them the lessons in money that their parents didn't give them, couldn't give them, or they weren't paying attention to their parents at the time. But you see that a lot, particularly a lot of destination, bachelor parties, destination, bridal parties, destination weddings, when most of their friends can't even afford to go to these places. I've actually had to pay for some of that. So I know at first, and so that's where the media comes in, and all this, look, some of the people that flaunt their money, yeah, maybe they really do have it and they did earn it, okay, more power to them, but a lot of them didn't. And so, but we get caught up in that, and it's identifying our self-worth with that. And it's like, we're not real. We don't belong. We're not enough. It boils down to this, Jason. It's a feeling of we're not enough. If we feel we're not enough, just as we are, who we are, the way we are, then we're going to look out there, and we're going to try to show that off to ourselves, let alone other people. And I don't want to get too deep in the therapy thing, but this is true, and a lot of people suffer from that. I became aware of it. I'm glad I did. It still plays a little bit. It's one of those things that you maybe never totally get past. So again, follow the money. Look, what do you value? Do you value, renting a Lamborghini so you can take a picture, or just going to your friends and taking a picture and posting that, making people think that you own the Lamborghini? Well, what does that say about you? Right. And I don't like to be judgmental. I really don't like to. It's just, and I'm not saying that they're bad people. It's just that kind of behavior is actually going to be a hindrance to you bringing in what you really want.
Yeah.
Because it's an unhealthy relationship to what you're trying to bring in the first place.
Yeah, there's no real benefit, I think, that comes from that sort of thing. And look, if you have the money because you worked to do it, and you want to have a Lamborghini, who cares? Like, that's fine. It's
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
not we're not trying to vilify money or what you do with your choices, but the problem really comes in when you don't have money and you're trying to look like you have money. I think that's where people hold themselves back by years, if not decades, in terms of their ability to achieve some sort of financial comfort.
And let me add one thing to this equation, because some people will take a picture of themselves in front of a car or a boat and put it on their dream board, and they say, one of these days I'm going to be able to have that possession. Or it could be a trip to some place. I'm going to be able to own that. I'm going to be able to be that. I'm going to be able to have that. I'm going to be able to do that. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with people setting big goals and aspiring and creating a visual representation of what that looks like. It could be very powerful, but that's a little different than what we're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
anyway, we got on a tangent, but maybe a good one.
Yeah, no, I was always when I first moved to Los Angeles, we lived in an apartment before we bought our house, and I was always shocked at the number of really expensive high-end cars parked in the parking garage at this not very expensive apartment. And I was like, this doesn't fit with how I think this should be. But um anyway, you mentioned something, you kind of brought up there that I would love to touch on and get your
Mhm.
thoughts.
Sure.
And it's children. It's we talked about a lot of our money, our relationship with money, our money story comes from how our childhood was. As someone who probably had a bad money story taught to me, and now have kids, and I'm trying to figure out
Mm.
what the best way to 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 portray the right kind of message to my kids. I wonder if you have any thoughts, insight, advice in that arena, in terms of educating our children better
Right.
on their money stories.
Well, see, the shameless promoter in me says the Hidden Heist, but your children are probably too young for the Hidden Heist. This
Yeah,
is
they are
more
too young to
for,
read that.
yeah. This is older Gen Z, Gen Y, maybe younger Gen. People that have time to implement. You're right, and there are books out there that teach children around money, all kinds of picture books and how money works and what it looks like. Um, I think one of the things that you can do as a parent is to be honest around money, and to be careful about the emotion that you portray around money. So, for instance, simple things, money follows value. Okay, allowance without doing chores, as opposed to doing chores, and they earn the money, and there's a little more reward there. They get it. They get the connection. Money follows value. That's a nice lesson to teach people, right? Um, when you can't afford, if your child wants something, and God knows, children want things all the
Yes,
time.
always. Yeah.
So it used to be with my daughter, who's 33 now. It was kind of, Daddy, can't we just go to the money machine? Right now, with the younger generation, it's, can't you just tap again?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Can't you just order me that on Amazon?
Exactly. Can't you just do that? And that, that Amazon, that's a whole other money pit for a lot of folks. But in any event, and some of that, by the way, is they're trying to reward themselves with a gift. People buy stuff on Amazon to reward themselves with a gift. Okay, I'm not going to judge you. You're not a bad person, but let's be aware: is that the best use? Anyway, so children, back to children. So instead of saying we can't afford that, right? No, you're always asking, we don't have the money. Money doesn't grow on trees. Tell that to an apple farmer, but money doesn't grow on trees. Uh, it's how you educate. You say, look, right at this moment in time, we don't have the money. We don't have enough money to be able to buy that, to purchase that item, right? We have to be careful about how we allocate our money. Yes, can we make more money? Will more money come? Yes. And right now, Right. So it's a dispassionate way to educate and they will get that sort of. It depends on their age, but they'll grow up with that explanation. And then there'll be times when you do have the money and you say, I signed a deal. I have, a little extra. Let's celebrate that. There's nothing wrong with celebrating. I'll tell you one big thing that I learned. And I did this with my daughter, and I'm doing it I did it with my nieces and nephews, and now I have grandnephews and nieces. And there's a lot of psychological studies and other neuroscience that has proven this, that humans will derive more pleasure and happiness from experiences than things. And so erring on the side when you're gifting, erring on the side of experiences. So I've taken my grandnephew's falconry. We've gone whitewater rafting. We've gone to escape rooms. I took my daughter on a Disney cruise. I took her on 5 Disney cruises. I think I'm still paying those off, but that's another conversation. So, but the whole idea of experiences versus things is a great lesson for children. So, and then of course then you spend time with them and you're doing things with them. You're not just giving them a gift and they go off in the other room and play with it, right? So I don't know, just a couple of things. Look, I'm not a child psychologist. I'm not an expert in that area, but that's what comes to mind.
Well, and I think, I think that's the question maybe is more for the parents of these children, and it's a topic that's very relevant to me and my children and my childhood. So it's always one of those things where it's like, I want to teach them an abundance mindset, but I also want to teach them that hard work matters. And it's like trying to be the perfect mix of all those things is a challenge.
It's a balance. Yeah. I mean, there's no question. So it's a lot of it is just modeling. Just they watch you. They watch you. You see that they watch and listen in ways we don't even realize, and they're watching and listening. Mm-hmm. It's actually scary as you learn that. So you'll be fine. Just the awareness of wanting to do this puts you a step ahead. And one final thing is this whole idea of in schools, they don't teach finance. They don't teach personal finance. Some schools are getting better. Some school systems around the country are starting to do it. It's usually an elective. It's not a requirement. So we're still growing up in a society of people who don't know money. They don't know about compounding. They don't know the difference between savings and investing. They don't know about good debt versus bad debt. People aren't learning these things, and so you take weird lessons and weird messages from society and weird thinking, and then you pair that up with lack of education. No wonder most people's money stories and corresponding behavior is not as productive as it could be.
Yeah, no, I mean, it realistically, it is a massive shift that needs to happen in terms of education around money stories and just financial literacy. It's because it's the vast majority of us probably don't have any education in that space, weren't taught, appropriate relationships with money and as children. And so, it is a huge problem that just kind of keeps carrying forward. Well, let me shift gears. The question I ask every guest, of course, related to the name of the show being Know Your Why, and you've touched on it some, but I want to just give you the chance to answer that question, I guess, directly. What is your why? I think the message that you're spreading, the book within the book and your teaching is very needed. But tell me a bit about your why and what kind of compels you to do it.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, my mission is everyone deserves to make educated decisions that are in their best interest. All right. So a lot of my why now is around financial literacy, financial education, and understanding all of that. And that's a big part of my why. There's a bigger part to that, though. Look, I've lived a long life. I'm 74 years old doing this. Hopefully I have another 30, 40 to go. I often joke that I'm going to live to 144, which is one
Why not?
gross, one gross. But in any event, I'm at the point now where this is kind of legacy work for me. I've made a lot of money. I've had a lot of success. I have a lot of influence. Am I still interested in monetizing what I do? Yeah, I just kind of can't help myself. I'm the marketer in me wants to monetize. But this is my legacy work of because if we can find ways to be better off financially, it really does solve a lot of problems. It doesn't solve all the problems. It makes a lot of things a lot easier. When someone's in a survival mindset, and there's just too many people in this world, unfortunately, that are in a survival mindset, it's hard to think about anything else. All the mental energy just goes to survival. And so us talking about money mindset and money story and all this esoteric, we're at a place where we can do that. But there's a lot of people that aren't at that place that can do that. And part of it has to do with financial education. It's not everything. There's structural things. There's all kinds of stuff that needs to be done. Buckminster Fuller, who was an architect, a noted architect and philosopher, noted actually back in the 50s, and this is true. There are enough resources, including money. There are enough resources on this planet, including money, for everyone to be doing very well financially. It's just misappropriated and misaligned. And I'm not disparaging people that have a lot of wealth, because a lot of people that have a lot of wealth also let their wealth flow. Yep. They invest in good causes and they give to good causes and all of that. So it's not just that. There's structural stuff, there's societal stuff, there's messages from parents and church and all that go against people having enough. But I just know that that's one place I can make a difference. And ease the pain a little bit, ease the suffering, and help create that feeling of I like to call it financial dignity. I think that we all deserve financial dignity, where a bit of stability, where we don't have to be worried every day about that. And I think it's achievable in somebody's lifetime, maybe not mine.
Yeah, no, I like that term. I like that term a lot. Well, when people hear this and they want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah, so if you look for Bill Cates on LinkedIn, you'll find me, and I welcome a link and a little conversation if you want. Don't try to sell me something right away, though, please. LinkedIn, the new cold calling.
Yeah.
My work, where I work with referrals and value messaging and all that, is referralcoach.com. And then the book is The Hidden Heist. .com. We have a cool little 1-minute video there. It's kind of like a movie trailer about the book, because the book's a story. And then from there, you can invest in the book. I don't want to say buy the book, invest in the book, and maybe make your money story just a little bit better and bring a little more of that into your life.
Fantastic. We'll make sure all that's in the show notes. Well, thank you, Bill, for coming on the show today. I mean, I'm sure we could spend hours breaking down each of these topics, but read the book, come back around, and we'll when we can dive in again at some future date. But
We'd love to. Yeah. We can get into all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah, it's such an important topic. So thank you so much for being here and sharing what you did. I really do appreciate it.
You bet, my pleasure. Thank you.
Folks listening, make sure you connect with Bill. We'll have everything in the show notes so you can find him and get the book. And please like, rate, and review the show so we can continue to get more great guests. And as always, thank you for listening.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?